What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of New Pod here on NotFest.com. As always, I'm Joshua Toomey. That is Ro Coley. And this week we will recap my adventures at Louder Than Life.
Yes.
And, before we get too far into it, man, I've been dealing with a cold this week. I figured I got something at Louder Than Life, and I know you're dying too. So I think it's everywhere, man.
It is.
It is.
Lots of fluids.
Yeah, crazy times, man. So I did 21 interviews at Louder Than Life.
God damn.
13 of them on Friday alone. So it was my brain was mush, but actually Knotfest flew in Slipknot's videographer to like film these videos for.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And so Anthony flies in, and after interview 9 or 10, I could just see his face. I was like, you look how I should be feeling right now. Like, because he was just like, man, it's just like, it literally like started at 11 o'clock in the morning and we went straight to like 4:30, I think 4:30 or 5, but it was good times.
Amateur.
Right.
Just kidding. You just got to get his festival legs on, you know?
Well, I will say that he is very much used to being Slipknot's like, all access guy. So He was definitely slumming it with me in media this week. but good dude, Anthony, and we took him out to dinner one night and all that good stuff. We'll just dive in, man. Thursday, it was a big 90s headliner night, and we obviously did the preview. But looking at it now, and when I went to see the show, it was funny, like the big main headliners being Foo Fighters, Weezer, Rancid, and 311.
Damn.
I saw all 4 of those bands in the 90s at like 1,000 cap room. It's just crazy now that they're gigantic festival headliners.
Right.
But of those bands, man, 311 absolutely murdered. I interviewed Peanut earlier in the day. That was my first interview of the whole weekend. I kind of wished I had a smaller band first, but diving in with Peanut, man, that's going to be a fun episode to throw out there. We definitely,
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, we went down the new metal, kind of there, because 311 is kind of a father. I think Roach Coach calls it a new metal papa. They kind of brought a lot of the DJ stuff, the 2-singer stuff, and Peanut and I talked about that stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean they kind of came in around like in that funk metal kind of aspect, and like not towards the end of their run, but like towards the end of the funk metal thing is kind of when you start getting into more of the Korn kind of thing, and it kind of seamlessly went from there to there. So I could definitely see them being like the new metal uncle, if you will.
Yeah. Rancid, they did like a pretty much like almost like a greatest hits set, which is basically them playing And Out Come the Wolves.
Right.
but I was just like, I'm a Out Come the Wolves fan. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a giant Rancid fan, but they played a ton of stuff that I recognized. I was like, oh, this song too. All right, here we go. Weezer, kind of the same thing. Hits that.
Yeah, like nonstop hits. Everything they have is a hit.
I will say the coolest thing of the night was not the coolest thing of the night, but as where the media tent was and where our bathrooms were, there's kind of like a little 1-2 lane road that kind of went from the main stage to the bus area. And as I was going to the bathroom at one point, this golf cart whips around the corner, and on the back of it is Dave Grohl and Pat Smear, and I made eye contact with Dave Grohl, so we're best friends now.
Right. He's gonna watch your gerbil when you go away for vacation.
Yeah, if he needs anything, he knows where to find me.
Right.
Other standouts of the day, obviously Coheed and Cambria fucking murdered. One of the best interviews of the weekend was Jamie from Code Orange. That was definitely
very cool.
Got the weekend going. Trying to see what else was on that day. We were so busy in the back, I didn't get out to see much. Like your boys King, I was not able to see them.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I mean, even L7, I wanted to make it over for them, but the way that the interviews kind of popped up, like the first band of the day I really saw was Coheed and Cambria.
Oh wow, so that must have been way later in the day, huh?
Yeah. So that was Thursday. Overall good day. It was just kind of a 90s nostalgia day. Definitely had a good time. The Friday was when 13 interviews on Friday, and
that was the metal day, right? Was Friday?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Mostly metal.
Yeah.
Like
Friday, Saturday were pretty heavy on the metal side of it. But let's see here. Like Fox Bat interviewed those guys. Those guys are local. Wargasm, one of my favorite interviews of the weekend.
Very cool.
Hanabiya. We've been saying it wrong. First interview I've ever done in where I needed a translator. So I would ask the generic question. Translator would translate. They would answer in Japanese. Translator would translate back to me. It was a very awkward interview, but I think they had fun, and I think it turned out fun.
Yeah, I mean, I interviewed way back in the day when I was doing my zine, Shock to the System. I interviewed they were a funk metal, sort of like a funk metal thrash band, Super Junkie Monkey.
Oh, nice.
It was like equal parts Red Hot Chili Peppers, like thrash metal. It was really cool. If anything, they would have been perfect for New Pod. Yeah. But it was the same thing. I had to interview them, and I'd be like, "So, tell me what it was like to do this and this and this." And then the translator would say it. They would kind of murmur to each other, and then the translator would go, "It was good." And you're like, "This is gonna be a really hard interview to write." So, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely something lost in that translation, unfortunately.
I will say that they gave very thorough answers. Like they gave,
that's good.
And I was, it was tough. I couldn't really get a footing in the interview. It wasn't a good give and take, obviously. So it was just like, what do you like about how do the American audiences take you guys? And
right.
It would come back, but they would give these thorough answers. So hopefully everything comes out in the wash on that one. Flat Black played. That's Jason Hook from Five Finger Death Punch's new band. And they did play a Five Finger Death Punch song, which I found very, very awkward. They were the opening band on one of the stages, and they're out there rocking some Five Finger Death Punch.
Right on.
Miss May I showed up. Inara Shakari. That was the one interview that I'm kind of iffy on. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I know that they're a massive band overseas, but they haven't really hit here in the States. So, and they've been around since like '99. So I just felt like out of my element interviewing them for some odd reason. They were the last interview of the day, so kind of left a funky taste in my mouth on that one. Morgan and Mercedes sat down from Kittie.
Very cool.
And I got to go out and check them out. They were one of the first bands I got to see that day, just because basically from 9 to 5, I was in the media tent interviewing. So like anything after 5 o'clock, I was able to run out and check out. But Kittie, the huge crowd for them. The fans were going nuts for them. Right. Actually, I was standing next to a lady, and a friend of mine who was like 6'5" walked up, and like I gave him a hug, and like I haven't seen him in a couple of years, so I gave him a big old hug, and like mid hug, she like tapped me and like, "Can you make your friend move?" I was just like, that was extremely rude, lady. She's
right.
like, "My Kittie is my favorite band," and I'm like, well, "You're at a festival,
right?"
And like there was room to move up. It's not like we were
right. Yeah, exactly.
Sardined in there. Like I was like, "Move up if you can't see."
Right.
Like, I was so mad.
Can you chop him down at the knee, please? That
yeah.
would be great.
Yeah. If you could just get on your knees and hug, that would be great.
Yeah. Right.
Avatar. That was the first interview of the day. Johannes from Avatar popped up, and media tent very close to the main stage, but like stage volume seemed to be pretty good all day. But dude, Avatar hit, and like I felt like Avatar was in the media tent with me.
Oh wow,
they were so loud.
Jeez.
But man, I love those guys, and Johannes has a very dry sense of humor. So hopefully that one comes off pretty well. Wage War killed it. Bad Omens killed it. Dance Gavin Dance guys were great. Corey Taylor did a solo set of, he did some Slipknot, he did some Stone Sour, he did the SpongeBob theme like always. I think Corey, him going out solo like this, he gets to play some Stone Sour stuff. He gets to play the Slipknot hits.
Right.
He gets to play a solo hits, man. I think if you're a Corey Taylor fan and you like Stone Sour and you like Slipknot and you like his solo stuff, it's a definite must go see. Go see him play these songs live. He actually popped up a couple times back in the media area, but I was never like back there at the same time. And Anthony, who works for Slipknot, obviously, he was like, "Man, Corey Taylor just came back here. We all did shots, and then he left." I guess he did a bartending thing in one of the tents too. So that was cool.
Right on.
Megadeth, great as always.
Yeah.
We saw a few songs there, just the one cool thing about Mustaine was at one point he was back in the media tent. He only did, I think, 1 or 2 interviews. And I was like, man, I was like, Anthony, go talk to the security guy and see if I can just grab a photo. And Megadeth was once managed by 5B, which 5B owns all of Knotfest. And I had forgotten that they weren't a 5B band anymore. And I'm like, all right, our in is that we're managed by the same people. And then it hit me that like he had just let 5B go a couple of months ago. So I didn't really know the inner workings of like if it was a bad split or if it was a good split.
Right.
So I left it alone. I was like, And then as I was talking to somebody else, like he walked out. But it was just cool to kind of be in. I met him, in the 90s, but it was still kind of cool just to kind of be in the same vicinity as him.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's why I love my buddy Dirk is the drummer in Megadeth, so it's always just great to see. I always love seeing him play because I'm just like living vicariously through him.
Right.
Just like, oh my god, it's like, and whenever we talk about it, he's just like he's still kind of like, I still can't believe it,
Right.
So it's like that's always my favorite part about Megadeth nowadays is just seeing him play.
Yeah.
And hitting all those beats.
Yeah, Mustaine and James Lomenzo were both back there, and I was even like, dude, that's the guy from White Lion, like let the children cry and wait, and all those, I love that.
Pride and Glory,
just Pride, I think it was called.
No, Pride and Glory with he was in.
Was he in Pride? I'm sorry, yeah,
Zach Wild. That's
okay,
that's how I know.
No, he the White Lion album was called Pride. That's where we were going with it. So Limp Bizkit, we're gonna get into this. That was a fiasco. Did you see any of the ramifications?
I haven't. All I saw was that they switched instruments and they opened with Blind. That's all I got to see or hear.
Okay, so they come out and they obviously they open with Blind with Fred on guitar and Wes singing and however else it happened, right? So they do that and then they go into the what's the track on $3 Bill Yaw where he's like, maybe it's not $3 Bill Yaw. It's the song where they basically shout out all the cities, getting frisky and, San Francisco or whatever and shit, Louisville. They saw the city names. So they kind of opened with that track. And then after that song, Fred's like, cut off all the cameras. We're not here to be on TV. So all the giant monitor or the video monitors where I was further back and watching
and just turned off.
He made them turn them all off. And so everybody that was far from the stage couldn't see anything going on anymore. And then like they had their screen behind them said Yacht New Metal, and they were like in between tracks. They were playing all the all the Asia and Toto and all that stuff in between tracks. And then they really just like jammed. Like they were up there jamming, talking shit. Like it was a really bizarre set. Limp Bizkit, one of my favorite live bands of all time. Yeah, that was easily the worst show I've ever been.
Not only that, I mean, come on, like those of us who grew up with them and everything, like we're in our fucking 40s, dude. I can't see you. I can't see you from way the fuck back there. Like I need the fucking screen to be able to see you.
I saw that. Because the Lauren from Roach Coach messaged me and said that they're just getting eaten alive on Twitter. So I looked it up, and a lot of people were complaining that the people up front, when they cut the screens off, there was a big crowd surge, and everybody kind of got squished up front. So it was kind of a safety issue too,
right?
And Limp Bizkit was like one of those like. I want to watch from beginning to end. Like I want to see all of the Limp Bizkit set. I love the band. I've always loved the band. And we literally just like, all right, well, I guess let's go find something else to do. Because you couldn't see them. They were kind of dicking around. And then the main band that night was Tool. Obviously a fantastic show. Beautiful show, the lights, the set, everything else. Right. The only bad thing with them is they were scheduled to get off stage at like 10:50, and they randomly abruptly stopped at 10:30 and did this really awkward like goodbye and like throwing drumsticks out and stuff, almost to where like, oh, they're going to come back out. And then they like my wife and I stood there for a while and we're kind of like, all right, well, they're coming back, right? Like they're coming back. And then road cases started getting pushed on stage, and I'm like, wow, this is really artsy Tool,
Right.
and, you know, like
super meta here right now.
Yeah. So we stuck around for a little while, and then finally it was just like, really,
nope.
But even by the time we got like back to all the gear and loading up, I was still waiting for them to play sober or something, you know.
Nothing, huh? Like just
nothing.
Came back. They didn't even come back out.
Yeah, nothing. It was weird because even they're like, you know how some bands do the fake goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a great show. Oh, thank you so much. Blah blah blah. It seemed like that just because it was so awkward.
Right.
So.
And there's always that, like when I saw Pantera actually a couple weeks ago, you know, they were like, all right, everybody, like, good night. They played Cowboys from Hell, and we were like, wow, all right, like that was fucking amazing. And then they came back out and played 2 more songs, and we were all like, oh shit, like that's fucking new. So yeah, it's like you're always kind of waiting for like, you're like, and here it come. I guess not.
Well, speaking of Pantera, we'll move on to Saturday. Saturday, I opened the day. I interviewed Brendan Small from Death Clock, obviously. That'll probably be the first one out just because he actually talks about the writer strike. And I think the writer strike, there's rumors it's going to be over soon. So probably should get that one out quick.
Be too dated.
Yeah. Come out in December. And like, what are you talking about here? But yeah, like I interviewed Ithaca. That was a fun interview. The Devil's Cut was fun. Jesus Piece was fun. I'm trying to see what else is on here. From that day, I saw Matty Mullins from Memphis May Fire, which is like one of my favorite bands. Nice. That was a band we actually made it out to go check out a little bit during the day. They perfectly sandwiched in between like my first interview and my second interview of the day. All the guys in the Who were sitting on a couch at one point, kind of in the media area, and I just wanted to come up behind them and just like lean down and take a photo because it was literally the entire band like on a big like L-shaped sectional couch. And I was like, this would be a great photo. I'm trying to see what some of the first stuff I saw the day. Gideon, I had to go out and check those guys out. Those guys, I don't know if I talked about it on the preview episode, but those guys are from the town that I lived in Tennessee.
Oh, nice.
The guitar player was. I think a couple of them were from like Alabama. But I mean, it got down to where like I said, you know, when was the last time you were at Rivergate Mall as a joke because that's the local mall there.
Right.
And he goes, oh, I used to work at the Rivergate Mall. And I'm like, well, what store? And he goes, Hot Topic. And I'm like, I was like, what do you remember about the Hot Topic? And he's like, he's like, the only thing I really remember is that my boss was this lady named Melissa with her cheeks pierced. And I'm like, that's my wife.
That sounds like your wife, dude.
And so that when I interviewed him on the podcast a while back, she was upstairs and I texted her to come down and she poked her head around and said hello. So when I saw Tyler at the show, I saw him in the media area. We were talking for a while, and he's actually a really big Primer 55 fan too, which is really funny.
That's pretty awesome.
So he's a big fan of the band, and then he was also, Melissa hired him at a Hot Topic years ago. But man, it was awesome to see them kind of just crushing one of the side stages.
Nice.
Yeah, Memphis May Fire Death. I went out and checked out Death Clock. What a fucking great show that is.
I hope we're here for that out here.
Yeah, I do say that it probably would have been a lot better in a club or an arena, closed venue, not just a festival site. But and then Gene Hoglan did come over, say hello.
Nice.
I was hoping to get him on the show, but he didn't. I guess didn't get the memo that he was also asked to be on the show. But yeah, he came over. We talked for a while, talked about all the good stuff. Always great to see Gene. I think Gene's been on the podcast like 5 or 6 times. So definitely a good dude.
Got a little history there.
Yeah. The main headliners that night, Falling in Reverse. I don't care what anybody says. I love that band, and they put on a hell of a show. I thought the best thing of the night though, I was walking to see Falling in Reverse, and I heard somebody go, "Is this Pantera?" And I just want to be like, yes.
It's so way different than I remember them sounding.
Is this Pantera?
They changed their sound a lot.
But to kind of get to the my main band of the night, Pantera. Obviously, second time I've seen them this year. Not as good as hang on. Not as good for me as the first time. We were kind of back into the side, so it was kind of weird, but we kind of weaseled our way, about center stage, halfway up. And once I got there, it was great.
Right.
But like where we started out, it like the emotions and the feeling and stuff wasn't there.
Right.
But
it's almost like for the first half of the crowd, you could feel that energy, and then it just kind of sort of dissipates the further out it gets.
Yeah. So like once we got up close, like you could really feel the emotions and everything around it. Again, band sounds great, looks great, lights are great, fire, everything that you want out of a Pantera show is there. Obviously, a lot of people were saying that Phil was kind of the anti-Limp Bizkit on that one, just because Phil was very, thanks. You could just see it on his face. He's just happy to be up there and happy that people give a shit and, all that stuff. And then the Who came out and did the walk, and Jose Mangan was up there during walk and things like that. So
right on.
It was good stuff, man. And then I did stick around for Avenged Sevenfold. I was nervous kind of going into this one because I'm not a big fan of the new album, but they did what they do, and they played the hits and stuff off of every album, things like that. I had a great time, had a blast. Sunday. Let's see here. Sunday. Did not really. We actually just kind of. I only had one interview of the day. Oh. And I will pat myself on the back for this one. Flogging Molly is a 5B band, and the head honcho of 5B was there, and he kind of comes up and says, "Hey, can you interview Flogging Molly in 1 hour?" And I was just like, "Yeah." I mean, what am I gonna say? No.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sitting there watching I was watching my football team on my phone just get absolutely destroyed, and then he comes up and says, "Can you interview Flogging Molly?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "It'll be Dennis Casey, the guitar player." So my wife gives me her phone. I'm like, as I'm watching football on my phone, and I'm like just scrolling through interviews, trying to get any nugget I can of anything.
Right.
Because I know Flogging Molly. I don't know them.
Right. You're not intimate with the band.
Right. So I wrote down all I could find really. And then, it was, which I guess will come up later. About the whole interview thing, but not a lot online with this guy and not a ton out there about him. So I just wrote down, the album title and the two bands they're on tour with right now. And he sat down. I mean, he's dressed all like, Flogging Molly, like, got the cool outfit on, and we're sitting there, and I was wearing my Johnny Cash shirt. I will say that. So he kind of said something about my shirt. I was like, "Oh yeah." And we started talking about Johnny Cash and Johnny Cash being from the town I grew up in and blah, blah, blah. So we dive into this interview, and I'm just pulling out of my ass, like whatever. And so I see that they're on tour. This is a festival show. How does a festival show kind of, thrown into a tour? How does that, what is that like for you type stuff? Then it gets into they were on the Warped Tour back in the day, and then we started talking about the Warped Tour, and then I asked him kind of a generic question of like, who's your guitar hero, and he said Elvis, and then I started talking about we started talking about how cool Elvis looked on the '68 comeback special, and just it was a fun interview, and one thing my wife does is she kind of gives me how long the interview's been going. She'll hit me with a 7 or an 8, just gotta just to know where
same thing.
just to know where I'm at.
Time to cut it down. Like that. That's what she gives me.
Well, a lot of times it's like I feel like the interview's been going on forever, and it'll be like 6 minutes. I'm like, really, just 6 minutes?
Right.
So, but this one was, I look up at her and she already gave me 10 minutes in. I was like, holy shit. So we're talking and we finish the interview, and he gets up and he goes, I was thinking Knotfest, I was going to have to like really brush up on my metal, but this was one of my, this was a great interview or something like that.
Nice.
So I said to him, I was like, all right, well, make sure you go tell 5B owner because, just, hey, the guy you're employing over there did a good job.
Yep.
And so later on, I was standing out by the restrooms or whatever, which we need to get to the restroom story in a second. So I'm over there by the restrooms. He walks up to me and he goes, I have 4 kids. And he goes, on my 4 kids' lives, in my 28 years of doing interviews, that was one of my favorite interviews of all time. And I told, Corey that. I was like, holy shit.
Right on.
And, it was just one of those that I had an hour to get it together and just flying by the seat of my pants.
Hey, you know what? It's like when you're kind of like too nervous about it, it's like you'll trip up, but I think you nailed it, man.
Yeah.
Got to fucking find those one or two little talking points, and then next thing you know, you're off to the fucking races. So that's awesome, man.
It's funny. I think I do better when I don't have as many notes.
Right.
Because I don't have as many things to get to. So like you really have to listen and focus and find that.
Right.
Oh, they said they like this band. Okay, I can go here with that, or I can go there with this. And if I have too many notes, then I'm already on to the next topic.
Right.
When they're answering the previous question.
Yeah, it's a little easier to ad lib. When you're not focused on question number 6 is this and question number 7 is that. And you can just kind of sort of wing it. Sometimes those are the best interviews.
Plus, that was the 21st interview of the weekend, so I was my chops were up. Before we get into some of the bands I saw that day, I do want to dive back into Saturday. So Oliver Anthony, who I actually just had to show you before we started recording, viral sensation, TikTok, reaction videos. He was on Joe Rogan recently. Like he's already like in a month's time.
Wow, just up
gone
there.
Bananas, right? So, and I've been on interview. I think we've interviewed somebody recently. And I was saying that how cool of a story that was, even if it's a plant, even if it's fake, all of it's fake. I still hold that there's still I can upload a song to the internet and it'll get into the right algorithm and I can be famous tomorrow.
Right.
That's kind of what he's done. And so I've been a advocate of Oliver Anthony. And I do know that he doesn't love media. So I'll preface the story with that. So I was like, well, if I see him this weekend in the media area, I'll ask him just for a photo because I think the story is fun. So I was coming out of the bathroom and who's coming in, there's that pathway in between the stages and the buses and he's coming at me. And I was like, oh shit, there's Oliver Anthony. So I was like, hey man, and I tried to say that I was with the media, that I was here working, that I wasn't just some riffraff that got backstage somehow.
Right.
And I was like, hey man, I'm doing media over here. Can I just grab a photo? And he goes, well, who are you doing media for? And I go, oh, I work for Knotfest, Slipknot, stuff like that. And he starts to walk away and he's looking at me funny. And he walks away and he gets about 6 feet from me and he turns and looks at me and he goes, I don't really like the media. And he just turns around and walks off. I was just like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Like I have never in my, years and years of being around bands and media and being in the media and all this other stuff, ever had anyone do that to me. And of all people, the guy that's been famous for a month, big time to me for a photo.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Anytime people get like that, where they're just like, I don't want to do interviews or, I don't know. Anybody who treats the industry like that, especially when you're in the industry.
Yeah.
That to me is a huge turnoff too. When they're just like, we're not doing any interviews. I'm like, okay, but then you're going to be pissed off that nobody's picking up your record or checking you out. Like, it's like stuff like that really, or when you get those people who are like, my art isn't a commodity. I'm like, why the fuck did you sign to a record label, dude? Like, what the fuck? What did you think was going to happen?
Well, I will say that he's like the anti Jelly Roll because Jelly Roll a few years ago he did every single podcast, radio interview, video interview. Like he almost like forced himself on everybody, and he had a bottle of tequila with him. And he did a shot at every, he did a shot with every host and he had an entourage. I mean, he was in the media tent working his ass off.
Right.
And then you get this guy who just like straight up looked at me and said, I don't really like the media as he walked away. I was like, oh my God. Even my wife saw it. She was like, what did he say to you? And I was like, oh, you just wait for this story. And I'm not saying that, he doesn't need me. He doesn't need a photo with me. He doesn't need any of this right now. But I'm saying in 3 years, when I get that press release of like Oliver Anthony's, third album coming out, would you like to do an interview? I'm gonna say no because I will hold a grudge.
Yeah, and not only that, I don't like people who don't like the media. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's so funny, man.
Whatever with people like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
like stuff like that. Even if it's just for a photo, it's like you could still stop and take a photo,
right?
You know, like that kind of thing. Where it's just like, you know, they made, you know, it's not like you were interrupting him while he was eating. You know, or something like that. He's sitting in, you know, Denny's with his family eating breakfast, and you walked up to him. Like, that would be one thing.
Like the bad Santa. I'm on my lunch break.
Yeah, like during a festival, like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
People like that, just that's the type of thing that irritates the shit out of me. When they're just like, no. It's like, really? Like, somebody wants to take a picture with you? Like, you can't even just, you know, stop and do that?
Right.
I don't know. That's
it was a mess.
But overall, the festival was good.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we just kind of hung around Sunday. Run the Jewels was fun.
Oh, man, I get to see them.
Queens of the Stone Age sounded great. Green Day actually was they're just another one of those bands, man. Like every single song is a damn hit.
Yep.
Yeah, just another great day of music. But yeah, overall, all 4 days great. You know, hung out with Jose Mangan a little bit here and there. You know, saw Matt Pinfield running around back there, and it's just kind of cool to still see him doing stuff. Yeah, overall, I think that you know, Oliver Anthony aside, it was a great weekend of music.
Nice. Yeah, next week I think it is Aftershock, and I wish I could make it this year, but this year is a little too jam packed for me to do that. But I will. I'll definitely be on that Headbangers boat, so I'll definitely have plenty to report after that nonsense. Nice.
Yeah. The last thing on the whole weekend was, and I was kind of looking back on the first year I ever covered Louder Than Life. I had a recorder, a little handheld digital recorder, that I basically, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, like that, whatever. And then the next year, 2 microphones and a you know, a recorder, and then, you know, like the next year, you know, just kind of keeps building, right? And this year we get there and we didn't really know if we had to build, like, kind of make a set, or if we were going to have one of the bays with, you know, our logo and stuff in it. And we show up, man, and we turn a corner and there's a bay with the Knotfest logo everywhere, and the couch and all that stuff. And I don't know, man, it was just really cool that I guess this is like maybe the sixth year I've covered Louder Than Life, and every year it's gotten a little bit bigger. This year, obviously, the most interviews I've done, biggest production we've had. I mean, they flew in a damn camera guy, for God's sake, you know. Like, so just overall, man, everything's moving up and forward, I guess.
Kick ass, dude, kick ass. Yeah, I mean, so out of all the bands you saw, was there any band that you didn't know about that really you were like, holy shit, I gotta check these guys out more?
Check these guys out more. I'm trying to do a quick scan of the
9,000 bands that played.
yeah. I mean, I did take your advice. You know, the Who was great to check out. It is one of those things, and I've made this comment a ton of times where you do the interview and then you like the band more. So I think that was Foggy Molly for me. Like, I did the interview and I was like, you know what, we better go check them out. And we had a great time checking them out. There were the Drunken Lullaby song. I was like, oh yeah,
I know that.
I know that song. I can't really see too much on here that's just like something I really, really like blew me away. We did go over to watch the emo night thing.
Okay.
Which I thought was.
That's right. I forgot that's what they were called.
I was hoping it was like maybe, you know, a band maybe covering songs, but it was literally a quote unquote DJ just playing like Paramore songs. I was just like, are you kidding me? This is what this is. But they actually had a pretty big crowd for that. Suicide Silence guys were running around. Those guys were hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, I think Death Clock was something that I really need to get into. Like, I need to really sit down, watch the show, watch the movies, get into the music, because that was one of those seeing live. I was like, man, I really feel like I'm missing the missing the joke or something,
Yeah, I mean, it's especially listen to that new record when we interviewed Brandon, just trying to brush up on the song, and I'm just like listening to it, and you can tell that some of the songs have a kind of a jokier vibe and whatever, but or lyrically at least, but like when you listen to the music, you're like, this has no right to be this fucking good. Right? It's like that's the whole thing. It's like the grooves and Hoglan's drumming and Smalls is playing and is singing. I'm just like, it's almost like if you gave a guitar to somebody who doesn't know how to play guitar and suddenly they just bust out the craziest fucking riffs you've ever heard, and you're like, okay, that's just not fair right there, but it is. I highly recommend it, dude.
Yeah. The
first record is just it's so phenomenal, and the new one is really good. I need to listen to the second one more, that is for sure. But yeah, definitely you got to get into that. I think you're going to be like, holy shit, dude.
I missed all of it.
Yeah. But,
it was good times.
It was Baby Metal there. Did they play?
Yeah, they were on one of the main stages. I think I was doing an interview as they were on.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
I could hear a lot of bands all day.
Yeah, right.
the Hanabia band. People were like, dude, they had samurais on stage, like all kinds of crazy shit going on.
Like, where was I?
Yeah, I know. I was just like, I wish I could have seen that. But yeah, I could. There was very little I saw on Friday.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But yeah, I think overall great weekend of music. But yeah, I just want to do a quick recap of the festival and kind of assuming we're going to do the same thing we did last year, kind of release one a week of the interviews. I do believe we'll start with Brendan Small, and then we'll kind of go from there. Right. So the next 21 weeks of Louder Than Life recaps.
Maybe 2 a week.
Yeah, you would think, but I think we'll go until Christmas.
Right.
But yeah, just it was great to see Cody and Cambria. Like I'm just kind of looking at that.
You're a big fan.
That was a. Oh, I did see. I saw Claudio earlier in the day. That guy's a little guy. He's a little buddy. Like,
His little buddy.
Well, he's just a little guy. But yeah, good times. But yeah, that was just a little recap of Louder Than Life, and then next week we have an awesome interview on the books. We won't spoil it, and we won't say just because it hasn't happened yet. So, but yeah, I think next week's episode is going to be a monster episode too.
Yep.
And we'll get back on track now that all this festival nonsense is out of the way. And,
yep, exactly. Get some more deep dives in. That's what I'm excited about. I want to do another cool album deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for a new pod here on notfest.com, and Ro and I are both wearing Dimebag Darrell t-shirts, but
right. That's how we're doing.
Let me shout out Mortis Viventi. It's a clothing company. They do these very cool shirts, and they actually slid me a nice shirt. Nice.
I have a bunch of their merch.
Yeah.
They're at every horror convention, there's a festival. They are, it's a great company. Great. As a guy who makes merch, I got to tell you, man, I love their merch. Their merch is really good. Yeah. Prints are really nice. Everything about it is really cool. So
I like the detail a lot, man. There were two separate clothing companies with very similar styles. And the Mortis Viventi, or however you say it, I might be saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Their look and their style and the shirts and everything look great.
Yeah.
They nailed it. The other company, not so much. but yeah, so I have to give them a little shout out here at the end. So for new pod here, notfest.com, I am Joshua Toomey. That is Ro Coley, and we will talk to you guys next week.